Hey, you're listening to the Tales of a Gearhead podcast. This is brought to you by Cornwell Tools. I'm your host, Stacey David. And Cornwell Tools are the choice of professionals, but not just professionals. Also, for everybody that wants to do any kind of quality work with quality tools, better check out Cornwell. All right, let's get to it. All right, the big thing we are going to cover on today's podcast is probably one of the most important things that you're going to have to deal with as a car builder and as a potential owner of a classic car. And that is titles, VIN tags, and all of that legal crap that nobody wants to deal with. But you have to deal with it. And this is extremely important, and I get this question all the time, and this is such an important area. We're going to spend time talking about it today, because if you're listening to this and you are a car person, I can almost guarantee you that you have struggled with a vehicle that you don't have a title for, or it doesn't have the right VIN tag, or somebody has altered something, or they've butchered on it, and you have had to deal with the DMV. Sometimes this ends really bad. We're going to go through the whole scenario, and we're going to try to lay out as many scenarios as you can run into and how to navigate this very challenging area legally. Because you can get sideways on this real quick and end up with an illegal car, and you don't want that to happen. We'll just start at the beginning. What is a VIN tag? Well, very simply, VIN, V-I-N, stands for Vehicle Identification Number. That is different than the serial number. The serial number of a vehicle is in the VIN tag, but the VIN tag number is much bigger and has more in it. And basically, what the last numbers on a VIN number is usually the consecutive serial number of the vehicle, but the first 5 or 6 or 7 numbers, whatever, tells where the vehicle was built, what kind of options it came with, what color it was, on and on and on. And sometimes a VIN tag is just one long number. Sometimes the VIN tag has multiple numbers on it. It will have the serial number, and then it will have a model, and then rear end and all that kind of stuff. A lot of your old trucks had this. So the axle option will be on there. You know, when you go to get the VIN tag or whatever on a title, sometimes it's confusing what goes on there. So it's important to know what a VIN tag is. Now, what a VIN tag is not is a body identification tag. A VIN tag is mounted somewhere permanently on a vehicle. In other words, it's on the body shell, which could be inside a door jamb. It could be on the firewall. It could be on the frame, but it is someplace that cannot be removed. And it is usually riveted on, but sometimes it is welded on, sometimes it is screwed on, and sometimes it is stamped in the metal. Okay, so now we know kind of where they are. Now let me get back to a body tag. A body tag is something that you'll find on a glove box, or you'll find on a door, or a trunk. Now, it will have your VIN tag number on there a lot of times. It'll say right on that tag, it'll say this is not legal for title or VIN purposes. A lot of your Fords and your Mustangs have that. You know that door tag? That is not your VIN. Your VIN number is on there, but there's also a VIN stamped under the hood. And the reason that is not considered legal is because those panels are removable. So if you wreck your car and you replace the door, you replace the tag. And that's how you can get a tag that doesn't match your car. It's important that everything matches. So now that we understand about the VIN tag, let's go into some of the things that you can run into. Back in the day, when the VIN tag was basically just your identification number, it didn't matter. You know, as long as it matched the title, everything was fine. But when the world of collector cars took off, and all of a sudden, the value of a car was based on what that VIN tag said. In other words, if you have a Hemi car, it's going to say on that VIN tag the proper number to say that that car was a Hemi. That better match. If it doesn't match, you have got a counterfeit car. And that became really important when these cars started going sky high in value. So all of a sudden, the VIN tag has become this hugely important thing for collector cars. And so for years, the VIN tag was something that you did not mess with. I did a lot of restorations back in the day. If you'll remember when I did Crazy Horse on the show, I literally replaced everything on that truck but the firewall. The VIN tag was not removed. I have done restorations before, and I've seen guys do restorations where you will take the VIN tag and cut around it and weld that piece of panel into the new vehicle. So everything is replaced, but the original VIN tag and the rivets are undisturbed. And that was the way you had to do it years ago and still stay legal, because you technically were not able to remove that VIN tag. And that is what a lot of people will tell you. If you call down to your local DMV, they'll say, well, you can't remove the VIN tag. Well, that's unrealistic to somebody that's doing a full ground-up restoration or a resto mod. I mean, let's take the case of a Ford, like a Mustang or something. You have that VIN tag, that VIN number stamped on the inner fender. Well, the inner fender is the first place that rusts out. That's always replaced, so those numbers are gone. So now what do? Well, you have to get a replacement VIN tag. And I'm going to walk you through how you go about that. But before I get there, I want to talk about, is it legal to remove a VIN tag? Now, the reason people said it was not legal to take it off is because what guys would do is that they would take a VIN tag off of like the dash of a Camaro, and then they would take that and they would put it on another car. And that's what car thieves did. You were not able to remove those VIN tags. Now let's move into the restoration world. Well, if you're doing a proper restoration and you have a VIN tag on the firewall of your old car or on the fender, well, of course you want to take that off and restore it properly. Especially if you're replacing sheet metal, you have to take it off. Well, you keep the main tag. Now, here's the thing. If you have a clear title and that number, then you just have to put that tag back onto the body after you've restored it, and you're legal. If you're missing a tag, say the tag was rusted, or if it was destroyed, or you can't read it anymore, which is very common, then what you will do is you'll go down to your DMV, and you will show them what you've got, tell them what you're doing, and you'll say, I need to apply to get a replacement VIN. They'll either do one of two things. They'll either issue you a new replacement VIN. An officer will come out and put it on your vehicle or watch you put it on, so it's legal. Or they'll just say, no, we don't want to do that. We are going to issue your car a replacement VIN tag. And they'll do that, and you'll get a new title, you get a new VIN tag, and a policeman will come out. They will put that tag on your car, and it'll all be documented. Now, you can see where that can be a problem if you have an original Hemi car, and that VIN tag is really important to show that it's an original Hemi car. If that's the case, well, you're going to have some discussions with your DMV, because then what you want to do is get just a replacement VIN, but you're going to have to prove it, and you're going to have to work with your DMV with that. You want to keep this legal. You don't just take it upon yourself, and you don't just stamp numbers somewhere. You have got to have the proper legal direction to do this, or you'll get yourself in trouble. So with that kind of basis, let's walk into some of the scenarios that you might find. Say that you go somewhere and you buy something, it has a tag, but there's no title. This is very common, especially from like an estate sale or a garage sale. I bought an old chopper out of a guy's garage years ago, an old Honda chopper. It had a VIN tag and everything on it. Guy couldn't find the title. So what do? Well, you have to go down and you apply for lost title. Keep in mind, that's what you have to ask for at the DMV. If not, they will say, well, you got to go back through the guy that owned it, and he has to go through the guy that owned it until you get back to the original owner. That's impossible. I mean, there's no way to hunt those guys down. So you basically just come in and say, listen, I just bought this thing. I need to apply for lost title. Then what the DMV will do is that they will run a search on that title. When you apply for lost title, you'll either need to take a photograph of the existing VIN tag or a pencil drawing of it, where you just take a pencil, put a piece of paper over it, and just do a rub on it. And then they will search through the DMV database and make sure that vehicle is not reported stolen. If it's reported stolen, it goes back to the original owner, and you're out the money. Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that. But if it's not stolen, then they will either issue you a replacement title, which is usually not what they do. Usually, like in the case of this motorcycle, they said, okay, it's come back, it's clean, but instead of issuing you a new title with this old VIN tag on it, we're just going to issue you a brand new title and VIN tag. And so I waited a few weeks. A policeman showed up with the VIN tag. We stuck it on the motorcycle, and I was good to go. Now, say if you run into a situation where you have a title, but you can't find a VIN tag on the vehicle for whatever reason. Well, that's when you go down to the DMV and you ask them, you need to get a replacement VIN tag. And you take the documentation you have, you take your title, say, here's what I got. I just don't have a marking anywhere on the vehicle. And what they will do, they'll fill out a form, it costs about $10, and they will issue you a replacement VIN based on the one that is on your current title. If they don't want to do that, then they may say, we see you got a title here. We're just going to void this title out. We're going to issue you a new title. Neither one is that expensive, but it gets you back legal again. Now, obviously, if you have a vehicle where the VIN tag is valuable, once again, like a Hemi car or an old Shelby Cobra or something like that, where you want that original VIN, well, you need to tell them that. It's like, listen, this is really important that I keep this original VIN tag, so let's go to the replacement title direction. Then, of course, the third one is you buy a vehicle and it has no title and no tag. And you're probably thinking, well, how in the world can that happen? Usually the way that this goes is that guys, they start tearing apart a vehicle to restore it, and they remove the VIN tag, and they'll put it in an envelope with the title, so it'll be safe. And then something happens to them. They pass away, they sell the vehicle, they do whatever. For some reason, the title and the VIN tag get separated from the car, and you end up with it. I have a vehicle I got from a guy who got it from an estate sale. That exact same thing happened. I have no title and I have no VIN tag. So what I'm going to have to do is go down and apply for title. Guys, listen, every state is different. So I'm just giving you kind of just the general direction here. You got to go down and work with your own DMVs. Every state has their own laws. Every state handles this a little differently. And some are more tough than others. Alabama, they don't even have titles on things that are over 25 years old. So it's just bill of sale only stuff. There's just a lot of different scenarios here. When the subject of tools comes up in the shop, people will all talk about their sockets and their wrenches, but then we start to get into the subject of exotic tools. These are your body-working tools, and these are your flangers and all these special tools. And people are like, where do you get those? Because you're not going to find those at Home Depot, and you're not going to find them at the local hardware store. And that is where Cornwell comes in. They have a catalog that's like the old phone books. You remember the phone books? Well, that's a Cornwell catalog. And these guys will bring the tools right to you. Once you start to get into that world, and once you start to see what's out there, you'll be like, what have I been doing messing around with the stuff that I find locally? One of the cool things about a company like Cornwell is that they do have warranties, and they have guys right on the trucks that can really talk to you about the tools and steer you in the right direction. So if you're really into your projects and you're into doing things right with good tools, check out Cornwell. Hey, welcome back, where we are talking about tags, titles, and VIN numbers. And the situation we're discussing is if you have a vehicle but no title and no VIN tag on the vehicle. Now, chances are you could go down to the DMV, tell them your situation, and they'll issue you a new title and a VIN. They could do that. I've had that happen before. But they could come in and go, something? We're not going to do that. We don't feel right about this. We're not going to do it. That is in their right. And you know what I have now? I have a parts vehicle. If I can't get a tag for it, if I can't get a VIN tag for it, it becomes a parts vehicle. What you do not do is go out and try to find another vehicle in a junkyard that's got a clear title and take the VIN tag off of that and transfer it to your vehicle. That's get you in prison right there. That's fraud. And basically that's what people used to do. Now this brings me to the kit car thing. We're not even to the kit car or component car issue, because back in the day, when kit cars were first coming out in the 70s or whatever, that's what people would do. They would buy an old Volkswagen that had a clear title, and they would build their kit car. And then they would take the VIN tag off of that Volkswagen because it was clear, and they would put that on the kit car. So a lot of these, fake Ferraris going around are licensed and titled as a Volkswagen. And theoretically they are, because it's the chassis of that. And that was legal. That was the way that you could do those cars. And all the DMVs really cared about is that you had a clear title and a clear VIN tag. Now, what has happened is that the whole kit car world has changed. Now they're not even kits anymore. They're component cars. And you can't do that kind of stuff anymore in a good way. One of the things that SEMA has done, because so many people were building replicas, Cobras and Ferraris and all of these Listers and even this Cheetah that I'm doing, that they said, listen, there's enough guys building these replicas that we have to make it easier for them to title these. These are not thieves. These are car enthusiasts. So SEMA was able to get it passed to where you can go down and you can get a component car, a kit car, licensed and registered as the vehicle it represents as a replica. So if you're doing a 32 Ford from Brookville Roadsters, they will give you an MCO, which is basically a certificate, which means Manufacturer's Certificate of Origin. And it will come with a number, which is basically their VIN number. So then you will take that down and you will get a VIN tag made out of that and a title. And they will transfer that. And that's all legal. Now, I make it sound really easy. The problem is most DMVs have no idea what we're just talking about. So it is on you as the car enthusiast to go down and do your homework, research these forms. When you go in and say, hey, here's what I need, they're going to look at you like, what are you talking about? I just need to hand me your stuff, hand me your dollars, and let's get your registration on your new Lexus. No, that's not what you're doing. So you'll need to go in and go, hey, listen, here's what I've got. I've got a kit car I'm working on, and I need to get one of these forms where I'm applying for title. And here is the manufacturer's certificate of origin. Here's the tags, and they'll go through that. Now, what they will do is that they will charge you sales tax on that because it is considered a new vehicle. So this brings up another thing. What you want to do if you're building a component vehicle is as soon as you get the frame and the chassis, take that down and get your VIN tag, because they're going to charge you taxes on that. If you wait and build your $100,000 or $200,000 car and take it down there, then they will go, oh, you owe a sales tax on a $200,000 car. You see the problem here? You don't want to do that. What they are taxing you on is whatever that VIN tag goes on. So if it's the chassis or if it's the body, that is what they will charge you sales tax on. Nothing else. Because remember, the motor, the drivetrain, the wheels, the tires, you're paying sales tax as you buy those. So you've already been taxed on those. So it is up to you to know and do this in the proper order, or you will get stuck with a bunch of taxes once it's done that you've already paid. Once you get moving on that, that should take care of the kit car thing. Now, here's the deal. Let's say you buy an old kit car, an old Cobra that was a kit back in the 70s, and it's titled as a Fiero or whatever, and you don't like that. You'd like to get the title transferred over to a 67 Cobra replica. Well, you can do that. You can take that down there, request that form, and say, listen, this is a kit car. It was built back then. Here's the tags. This is the license. Here's my VIN tags, all that stuff. And I would like to get a new VIN issued for it and the title that says 67 Cobra replica. And your DMV will do that, and it won't cost you that much. So it's possible to do that. But like I said, the important thing to remember is you can't take a VIN tag off of a vehicle and start transferring it to another vehicle. This is the big no-no, and this is the thing that you make sure that those VIN tags, they're very valuable. That's why a lot of your DMVs will actually take your old VIN and your old title and they'll burn it when they reissue one. Now, in a couple of cases, for example, when I did the Harry Hauler, it was a 1934 International, and it had the 1934 title, which was a really cool document. So what I did when I went down there and got a new fresh title, I said, is it possible when it's all done, once that old title is voided, can you send it back to me so I could, frame it, put it on the wall? And they did that. And of course it had a big stamp, that it was voided and it was not a title anymore. But it was such a cool document. It had the original owner's signature on it. I thought it was really neat. There's a lot of things that you can do with that too. The big thing here is make sure you work with your DMV and make sure that you take care of this ahead of time. A lot of you guys might be thinking, well, that's fine, but, what does it have to do with me as a builder? Why is this a problem? Well, let me give you some scenarios, because now if you're following what's going on, or if you're a shop and you're trying to build things, the resto mod is a really big deal. And most people now, with guys like Brookfield Roadsters and all these shops, like TCI or the Roadster Shop, Schwartz Performance, all of these guys that offer complete rolling chassis, well, as soon as you put a complete rolling chassis up underneath a vehicle, 9 times out of 10, you've gotten rid of the VIN tag that was stamped in the frame. So this is an issue. So even though you have a tag on the vehicle, and you can go to plenty of places and get a replacement VIN tag stamped, it's like $30. You can go on the internet and have somebody stamp out, and it says VIN on it, and you can have your number stamped on it. You can put it on the car, and you're right. You're good, right? No. If you try to run that car through an auction, they'll stop you. Now, if you sell that car to a private individual, nobody's going to care. They're going to look at the title, and they're going to see that VIN tag stamped on a tag on the body that says VIN, and they'll be fine. That tag, however, is not an official tag from the state that has the state official logo on it. So that is not acceptable when somebody starts really looking at it as a state legal thing, even though all your numbers match. Let me give you a scenario. Okay, so you build a vehicle and you sell it to a guy, and then he sells it to a guy, and then he sells it to another guy. That guy decides he wants to sell it at Barrett-Jackson or at Mecum or one of these big auctions. All right, and say it's an expensive vehicle. It's a $100,000 vehicle or more. Okay, the Mecum guys look at it and they go, this is not acceptable. This VIN tag is not accurate. So what are you going to do? Because they're going to say this car is not legal. So you're going to go back through all the people until you end up on the doorstep of the builder. And then the builder, you're going to come out and you go, dude, you're building illegal cars. And the cops are going to end up on your doorstep. And now you got some explaining to do. Now, you're legal, but you don't want people to come at you that way. You want to take care of it first. So as the builder, I'm telling you guys, it is your responsibility when you are doing these kind of things. If you're altering where the VIN tag is, if you're altering VIN tags, and you're doing this kind of thing, and you're doing it legally, you owe it to your customers to make sure that you're going down and you're taking care of the stuff at the DMV to where the VIN tag that's on the vehicle is the actual one from the state. So when it goes anywhere, if it goes overseas, if it goes to an auction, a person looks at that and goes, that's a valid VIN, that's a valid title, rock and roll. That's what you want. If that's not happening, believe me, that will come back, and that kind of stuff can put your shop out of business because you don't want people to accuse you of fraud. And of course, if you are being fraudulent, you do need to be put out of business. But most of the time, this is going to happen to guys that just didn't know. You don't want that to happen. Hopefully, this sheds some light on this very, very in-depth issue. And like I said, the best thing to do is check with your local DMV. SEMA all the time is listing legality things, issues, titling, registration stuff. And these laws are changing all the time. Just because you did it this way 20 years ago doesn't mean it's still done that way. Keep in touch with what's going on and get out there, build some cool stuff, but just make sure you keep it legal. All right, that's it for today. Once again, we're brought to you by Cornwell Tools. Have a great day and get out there and work on something.